can have Andrew anyway.
Oh, yeah. That's all sides.
Don't be yawning back here, but
Wait 1 more minute.
yeah, 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes?
You break that out. Of course, the last one is
Yeah.
No.
I tried to have a little poker face around that one, because I knew I was going to win.
Tony Berlin over here at it.
Yeah,
It's the Cupertino time.
can't
wasn't
beat
it?
me.
Turn my phone off.
Looking guy.
That's close enough.
What's that gonna come out? Nail feather here.
You missed that? Give them 10 years.
Especially when they do this. My brother was really good.
I know. Or they have the comb in the back.
Hold
Yeah.
on, in order and everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Ms. Shikari, would you lead us in the flag salute?
I will. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Suzanne, would you please take roll call?
Trustee Vidal,
Here.
Trustee Villalobos.
Here.
Trustee Levin,
Here.
Trustee Gould,
Here,
Trustee Shiokari.
Here.
Thank you.
The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts the meetings. Okay, closed session. The board met in closed session regarding conference with legal counsel and public employee performance evaluations. No action was taken. Okay, approval of the minutes of August 29, 2018. Do we have a motion to?
Can I just question? We did take action, no? We took a vote.
Yes, we did take a vote for the approval of the agreement.
That we,
That's true.
how do we describe that here?
That we're going to support the plan,
I think that's all we have to say.
Yeah.
We voted 5-0.
5-0 to.
Okay. How do you describe something when you can't describe it? Okay, approval of the minutes for August 29. Do we have a motion to approve? Okay, all in favor?
Board, I'm sorry, can I get you 2 seconds? I'm seconding.
Oh, a second?
And board passed 5-0, thank you.
Okay, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. Any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed on the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
A motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Board passes.
Sorry.
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So internship and student-teacher agreements.
I think that's still part of the consent.
That's still part of the consent? Okay.
Number 9. I'm on
Oh, there
number
we
9.
are, okay.
Next page.
Okay, communication. Okay, communications, this part of the agenda is available for the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. LSEA?
LSEA and CSEA are gonna talk tonight, or say hello. Jerry's coming around with invitations for the LSEA and CSEA back to school events that we have every year at Sharp Park, and we hope you are able to make it. And that's it. We're back to school. And I think we're, 6 weeks in now already? 5 weeks, 6 weeks? Yeah,
Six.
we're pretty deep into it already, so it's good. Thank you.
Thank you. On the RSVP.
Six.
Thanks for the invite.
Okay, people wishing to address the board? No. Okay, correspondence?
I have some correspondence. I have 2 items. One is a letter that came from Ann Campbell, which is just confirming the successful bond election. And so I'll just read it. In connection with the bond election, requires the county superintendent of schools to send a copy of the certificate of election results to the clerk of the Board of Supervisors of the county. Attached is a copy of the final certification in connection with this election. So we are done. Yay. Secondly, the other piece to that is the approval of our local control accountability plan, and that the letter is written to President Radal, and it outlines pieces around the plan, the adopted budget, and talks about things like reserves, cash flow, but that we were fully, that our LCAP was fully approved, and so Elizabeth has a copy of this as well. I gave her copies of each of those.
Okay. Board Superintendent Communications?
I'll start. I attended the Ocean Shore Back to School Night. There was a very good turnout. School was clean, inviting. I saw Julie and Siva purposefully walking down halls helping parents find their classrooms. And I stopped in at, I think, most of the presentations, at least just for a few minutes, and everyone was very engaged and very excited. I attended the field trip to Casa de Maestro in connection with our workforce housing, mostly to look at sort of the aesthetics of the buildings and the landscaping, and talk with the architect about vision. I don't know if, have we started sending out any kind
Updates
of
to the board?
compilation to the full board, sort of minutes of things? Or?
No, we are waiting for a set of minutes to be corrected, so it
Okay.
probably won't go out next Friday. I sent out about a paragraph of
Okay.
the visit, along with access to all of the photographs
Great.
that Elizabeth
So,
took.
yeah, that was exciting and it was fun, and I think we all sort of saw a lot of things we didn't want to do. I mean, they had a lot of grass, which right away we were saying we're probably not going to go there because we want to be more conserving on water and landscaping and things. But it was just nice to kind of walk around and kind of get a feel for it, and to feel sort of energized and hopeful about our workforce housing. Then we had a separate meeting with the landscape architects to again discuss things like the types of planting, as I just said. Big discussion about drainage, runoff drainage. This was a big discussion. And different areas of use. Very preliminary discussions, but kind of, it was a little amazing how long you can talk about landscaping, but we did. But no real decisions yet. Again, just very preliminary. And then I was interviewed by a group of students in a journalism class at IBL, Miss Wally's 8th grade language arts class. They're doing a journalism project researching affordable housing for teachers. And poor Josie, I way over prepared, and then those 5 students had their questions already, which were nothing of what I was prepared on. But it was really fun to see them. So they were really advocating for their teachers, you know, about how little they're paid and how much they deserve to have housing, and it was really wonderful. So so that was a fun moment, and thank you, Josie, for helping me.
Thank you for going.
Yes. And then finally, I just wanted to give you an update. Last year, I think I spoke about inclusivity with the library programming and more special ed resources. Jennifer Gray had done some great outreach to San Mateo County Library, and I received an email this week from Angela Lewis, our local librarian, who was giving me an update saying that they are now providing fidgets and manipulatives at children's programs. She put some out last week for a hip hop workshop. And then they are going to have San Mateo County Library System receive some kind of a grant about inclusion. And so they're going to have workshops in October for parents as part of our Disability Awareness Month. The flyers have gone out, I know, on social media, and I think they're going out through the schools. And I believe she sent some here that we can send out to our special ed families. And they are also making sure that on their flyers for programming for children, they also are now including sensory-friendly, flexible seating manipulatives will be available for use. So they're trying to sort of make this more of a common practice, which I think is a big leap forward.
That's fantastic.
Well, I attended the IBL open house, and that was again very well attended, and went to visit some classrooms, and it was fun to run around and see what all the kids were doing, and because we had lots of little ambassadors out there, and the parents were, you know, I saw parents that I thought were Ocean Shore parents, and then they're IBL parents. And it's like, wow, everybody gets around here these days. So that was great. And then on Monday night, we went to the San Mateo County Board Association meeting to talk about math and placement and acceleration, and you know, we're of course the you know, we're set on no acceleration, and you know, we everything seems to be very happy with that, so we're not in any of those reports anymore about, you know, that students are failing every time, you know, failing at algebra because they're, you know, we're not teaching algebra here. So, you know, it seems like we're in a good place, but I think we need to look at our models with the high school and, you know, continue the conversations so that we are understanding what's going on there, so that, and they're understanding what's going on here, so that we keep that the placement conversation, you know, open, and make sure everything is fair and everybody has access to courses that will get them to the highest math courses that a kid should take, that any kid would be ready for. So that was interesting, and I don't know if you had a different feel about it, either the two of you and doing it. But that's my report about that.
So I was also at that event. I came in rather late, but I think I was in time for the breakout discussion where each table sort of talked amongst themselves. I think most of the talk at our table was about articulation and within districts. So obviously we're a K-8 district, but we're talking with other districts that were, I think, either K-12 or just high school districts, and the focus on that conversation was there has to be more articulation, and the right hand has to know what the left hand is doing, basically. Otherwise, kids are going to pretty much be set up for failure. That's what I took away from it. I'm not a math instructor. The other thing that I did was I went to the Masters in Governance course for governance with Superintendent Olson. That was almost 2 weeks ago in Salinas.
Seems like just yesterday.
Yeah, and so that was really interesting. It was the first course out of I think there are 5 now. Masters in Governance. I think my colleagues here have done the whole thing. So you 3 are, well, you 4 are Masters in Governance, and
We are.
and I'm in training.
We have a secret handshake.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know that yet. They teach you that, I guess, after the fifth one. But what I got from that was it was actually quite interesting. It formally taught me what the role of the board is relative to the administration of a district. So I learned a lot of guidelines and probably lines that I should not cross over, and I don't think I have yet, so that's good. What was really interesting about that as well is we were all sitting at our own tables, and the table that we were sitting at, there was a superintendent and another administrator. I think he was a union rep in his professional day job, but then he was a board trustee, and it was from Spreckles, which is a pretty small district. When we asked them, oh, where is it? They said, well, you see that field over there? It's right across the field, literally. And it was interesting to hear some of the challenges that they're having. Some were similar to what we deal with here, and some were just totally different. So I thought that was really good, and we had excellent conversation going down back and forth from Salinas. The only other thing that I have to say is very major project has just broken out of Stanford, which is a collection of 36 studies on California public K-12 education. And it's called Getting Down to Facts, and if you haven't heard about it, there's something in there for everybody, really. There are 36 studies, I authored one of them. So that just broke, so I gave a preview of my results to the EdSource's board of directors on Friday. And I'm going to be making some more presentations and sitting on panels and stuff. And I might talk with the board about trying to set something up for the district.
That'd be great.
Either I can present my work, or I'm sure I could probably get some other authors to come and present their work.
I've had a quiet 3 weeks for once, but I did receive a correspondence kind of touching on Kathy from the Pacifica Libraries, and it's from Julie Thinkling, and she's hosting a focus group to improve the inclusiveness of library programs and services and provide welcoming spaces for children and adults of all abilities. It'll be held at Sharp Park Community Room on Saturday, November 3rd from 2 to 3:30 if anybody wants to go. And they want to hear directly from those within the disability community and their family, advocates, allies, aspirations, challenges, and needs. And then they're going to take all that information and then try to make things more inclusive libraries. So, yeah, plan on doing that.
Okay. All right. I also went to the IBL back to school night and spent most of the time in the band room with the new band director. And it was nice to have all the parents coming in and telling about how their kids were excited about the new instruments. Also the Casa del Maestro and the housing. Going down and seeing what we'd only seen pictures of the housing down there and different architecture styles and the landscaping, like Kathy mentioned. And I guess the only thing that was different was the Daly City Youth Health Center had a grand opening of their new facility. And it's really nice, and it's a lot bigger and new, and I think they said it ended up being a $4 million renovation and to a new space. So Jackie Spear was there to dedicate it, and it was a packed house. Definitely a packed house. And hot in there. But it's going to be very nice for all the high school students that to have access to.
There are two things that weren't mentioned yet. I was at a big 5 workshop put on by San Mateo County Office of Ed at Jefferson High School that was put on for parents, and the parents in the group asked great questions. There were 3 members of the Ocean Shore Safety Committee there, but the new will be in the coming months. The new superintendent of San Mateo County Office of Ed has offered to do the Big 5 training for parents, or to provide us with some extra training should we want that. And the Ocean Shore families really thought it was valuable. The other thing that was not mentioned yet was this morning Elizabeth and I went down to a Home for All conference, and she was a member of a 5-person fishbowl around housing in San Mateo County, and represented us very well in terms of talking about our workforce housing and how we got it, but also the challenges that go along with it. So it was a great one.
Long morning.
She did great.
Long morning.
She did fantastic.
District business.
District goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed on the description of each board agenda item, and details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our Agenda Online page or by visiting the district website, www.pacificasd.org, under District Information, Board of Trustees. 10A, approval of contract with WLC Architect. Josie?
Okay, tonight we want to bring before the board a contract with WLC Architects for $122,000. With the passage of Measure O, that was, thank you to the community for supporting Pacifica School District with that. We did have a facilities needs assessment when we were going out for Measure O. Those were really summarized projects that we were looking at, but they were not detailed as far as what a true facilities master plan would have more stakeholder engagement, have true cost analysis of our buildings, and also be able to prioritize what are the most important things that need to get done first. And so with the board approving the first $18 million issuance, we now have the funds to be able to develop a very robust facilities master plan, and of course it would include stakeholder engagement. We did include the full proposal from WLC in the packet, and you can see there's quite a lot of activity that it entails in developing the facilities master plan. And also just to mention that Heather, myself, and John Hashizumi did meet with a couple of architect firms and get proposals from a couple of them, and we felt this to be the best match for Pacifica School District and our needs at this time. It will be very comprehensive, including facilities assessment, project cost analysis, and prioritization. I think the proposal is pretty detailed, and it outlines what we would do, and have in about a 2 to 3 month timeline. Even though it's spelled out, we would still have flexibility as we meet to fine-tune some of the action items in the proposal. So we are asking tonight for the board to approve this so that we can move forward with our facility master planning and start planning for Measure O.
Are there any questions or discussion about that?
No question, it's just exciting. Exciting to be moving forward
To get started?
on this.
Did you have a
I
question?
only had one question when I was going through it, and that was when I was looking at the pricing structure, and the most expensive line item here was to assess the conditions of our existing sites. And I just couldn't figure out how they priced this out really, because we have 2 K-5 schools, and that was sort of $11,250, right? So it's like $5,600 of something like that. And then you get to 3 K-8 schools, and it's $11,340. So it's about the same amount, but for 3 schools. And then you get to our 168 school, and it's $6,120, and that's kind of more in line. So I'm just wondering why the K-8 schools are cheaper to assess somehow.
That's a good question. Are you looking at
I'm looking at page well, they don't put page numbers
Yeah,
and,
there's no page numbers.
but it's down where they start breaking everything out, it's the first line item. So that's just my quick question, I mean, I'm still happy to approve this, it's just, you know, I probably would have asked them, like, what's going on here, because it could be a typo, who knows, they could have a very good reason for it, but.
Yeah, and I'm thinking square footage, but I can also,
Okay.
and the age of modernization, but I can also dig deeper and get more
Okay,
details.
well,
You know,
I mean,
just send it out. to
that's
you.
okay, that's okay. So I guess my only other question for you is what stood out about these guys, because you also have one other bidder competing. So what were the real benefits that you guys saw with these guys versus the other ones?
It was really their presentation, and John found them from searching various facility master plans, and he found that one is one of the ones he found that Heather has.
So he specifically liked their product that they developed, which is this, but within this product, it's not just talking about the plans, but it also showcases, I'm trying to find a picture, so they have pictures of their sites, but they talk in depth about the process that they do it with, and they even show some of the charts. So it was the stakeholder engagement piece, but they also demonstrate, they visually show the charts that they used. So sometimes when you sorry, audience. Sometimes when you use you might use a dot structure, they just took a picture of it and included it in there. And we just liked the way that they talked about stakeholder engagement, but then also the product that they developed. The other one was also very, very good, but it was the product, and they came to us because John ultimately liked that.
Were the bids close?
Yes, they were. And this price could actually be less depending on as we get into the process, if we need, you know, less time or, you know, less resources.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the contract with WLC Architect?
I'll motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay, 10B, approval of First Amendment to the agreement for purchase and sale of real property and joint escrow instructions between Pacifica School District and the Ignatian Corporation, St. Ignatius.
Okay, this item is really just a formality. The board has already approved a purchase and sale agreement with St. Ignatian for the sale of Fairmont. And within that agreement, we already have agreement on if they were to sell the property within a period of 10 years, the district would be entitled to 50% of the profit. And it's all agreed upon, but when it went to the title company preferred to list it as a deed restriction. So this paperwork that we're looking for you to approve tonight is really just to alter the deed portion of the filing with the title company so that it satisfies their requirement. And it's already been signed off by the St. Ignatian organization.
Any other questions? No? Do we have a motion to approve? Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay, 10C, report on opening of school, student enrollment, and staffing update. Maria?
Well, good evening. I'm really pleased to report to you a very successful opening of the school year, although as Megan said earlier, it seems like almost a distant memory at this point, 5 or 6 weeks into the school year. And things have continued to operate very, very smoothly. We appreciate your involvement and attendance at the various back-to-school nights. I know that staff and principals feel very supported to see board members involved in that, so we thank you for that. If anyone has one last little bit of time to come to our preschool open or back to school night, which is coming up next week.
Monday at 8:15.
Monday at 8:15. We'd love to have you come and see how the littlest ones are doing. And that will kind of put a close to our back to school season for this year. Our enrollment is trending very nicely. We had, as you can see there in the memo, 3,128 students total enrolled, including our preschoolers, and that's up a little bit from last year. Let me see, I think it was increase of 8 students from last year, so that's good. We're holding the line there. And we have officially moved into our 5th year of a successful TK program this year, which is lovely too. We were able to accommodate the vast majority of kindergartners who applied to the district, who enrolled in the district, got their first choice of kindergarten placement. Up through the first day of school, 304 students got their first choice, and a small number of those into their second choice of school. So that is a very good proportion. And then a few have remained on the wait list to enter into their first or second choice. New and intra-district transfers, we had a total of 135 students come from outside of the district coming into the district from a variety of neighboring districts, and about 65 of our students going outside of the district. So I'm pleased that there are more coming in than asking to go out. I think that the surrounding districts regard our district as a strong district and a place where students can get a very good education, and so it seems to be in demand, which is nice. Let's see. We have, I really want to publicly thank Marta Gretsch, who is our registrar. I know from the spring, before I even arrived, all the way through, and just a few weeks ago, that's really her top priority, is managing all the enrollment and making sure that we're spreading the students out evenly so that we're not filling up one school too full and leaving one school or even a classroom too low. We also appreciate that the Laguna Salada Education Association partnering with us to to agree to allow us to have a little bit of flexibility for enrolling one over our maximum cap in those cases where it means that 2 siblings can attend a school together. So that's a really nice thing we can do to honor families and keep them together. And we appreciate that. Regarding our staffing, we are also there in very good shape. I went to the county-wide meeting of HR directors last week and heard a lot of groaning and concerns about the number of vacancies that many districts all throughout the county are still contending with. And we do have a few, but I'm happy to say that we're down to just a very few. We do still have a vacancy for a science teacher, a part-time, half-time science teacher. We had an unexpected resignation of one of our school counselors. So we are looking for that and have a nice pool, and we'll be interviewing to fill that position next week. And a couple of other part-time and full-time positions that are in various stages of recruiting, posting, interviewing, and so forth. So some that don't have any applicants, but again, even with that, I'm happy that we are in the shape that we're in. I think we're better off than many of our friends in other districts. So that's the end of our opening of the year report. And do you have any questions? Yes?
Just a quick question. Right in the middle of the list of vacancies, is that number right, 5.5 behaviorists?
No, that's a typo.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it means it's a 5.5 hour a day position.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm used to
No.
looking at FTEs,
Sorry.
so I'm like,
That's a
oh
typo.
boy.
Our apologies, yes, no. That would be probably like a 0.8.
Sure. Okay, thank you. But the other ones are FTEs.
Yes.
Gotcha. Just wanted to make sure. I was like, so we have no behaviorists.
Yeah.
You're saying, that's what I was thinking.
That would be a problem.
Yeah.
10D, Resolution 2018-09-20-B, adoption of GAN. Josie?
Okay, well, the GAN limit goes back, way back to 1979. It was established by, the author was Paul GAN, and it was really intended to limit the growth in spending in state and local government agencies by linking year-to-year changes with inflation and kind of limiting the amount of spending. So it's an education code requirement that we do this calculation every year. And for Pacifica School District, we have not exceeded the calculation of the GAN limit, which, you know, if you're interested, the calculation is, there's a 3-page calculation attached to the agenda item. So really what with the calculated GAN for 2017-18, once we've closed the books, the calculation is $24.4 million. And then we also have an estimate of what the GAN is for 2018-19, which is $24.8 million. And so tonight, you know, for the Ed Code, we're asking the board to pass a resolution adopting the GAN limit, you know, acknowledging the GAN limit for 2017-18 and passing the GAN limit for 2018-19. If we were to exceed the GAN limit, then we would have to write a letter to the state, kind of explaining and asking for the exemption. But we're not in that situation in our school district.
Okay. Any questions or discussion?
No.
No? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the GAN limit?
I'll move.
In a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Okay. 10E, the approval of unaudited actuals for fiscal year 2017-2018. Josie?
Okay, so tonight we have before you, we closed our votes for 17-18, which is July 1st through June 30th. Back in May, when we worked on our adopted budget, we presented to the board what's called estimated actuals, along with our adopted budget. And our final unaudited actuals are very similar to what we presented to you in May, as far as the revenues and expenditures. Our auditors have been out now. They were here at the end of August, beginning of September, and they're about 90 to 95% complete with their audit, and they really didn't raise any major concerns. They review the revenues, they review the expenditures, they review our internal controls in human resources and payroll, and the auditor will come in January and give his report to you, so I'll save all that for when he comes. Part of reviewing the unaudited actuals is just looking at your ending fund balances, and we did have a substantial deficit estimated last year when we brought the budget to you. It was over $1 million, so it was a little bit less, but not much. It was pretty close to what we had anticipated. If you scroll to the second page, Willie, you can see a breakdown of our ending fund balance. Thank you. And so you can see, you know, there's a small revolving account, the reserve for economic uncertainty, which is 3% as required by the state. And then, as always, we always have some carryover funds, which were not anticipated in the estimated actuals, and that's really some of the site funds. They're very, you know, fiscally prudent, and also because some of the things that they order near the end of the year don't arrive until July and August, so it shows as a carryover balance. The parcel tax has a $16,000 carryover balance, and the other thing that was a little bit higher than we anticipated is lottery. Lottery usually comes in higher because the state gives you estimates, and then at the end of the year after you're done, the state revises the estimates. So that's a good thing, because then there's additional funds for textbook adoptions, and we're carrying $295,000 in lottery funds, which some of it has been spent in July and August, but it's a good number for Will to move forward with. It's not enough for textbook adoptions, but at least we have some funds for textbook adoptions. The other thing to point out is, and, you know, just a reminder, we talked about this at the budget, we are in a deficit spending. It is a structural deficit because of the LCFF COLAs are not enough to cover our increases in our retirement, you know, benefit accounts for STRS and PERS and our operating expenditures. The COLA for 18-19, 3.7%, and for 19-20, 2.57%. Another reminder is we're just really carefully watching our cash flow, because we are heavily reliant on property taxes in December and May. So cash flow continues to be a monthly issue for Pacifica school districts. And then at the end, it just mentions we are complying with the government requirements for reporting retirement accounts. That's the GASB 68 and also the GASB 75 now for reporting other post-employment benefits. Another thing to point out for the unaudited actuals is there is this thing called a percent of current cost of education for, to classroom compensation, and we do meet that percentage, which means we are spending the required amount on direct instruction in the classroom. And for elementary school districts, it's 60% and we're at 61.45%. Another thing is we've met our maintenance of effort for special education. We've met both the maintenance of effort for the current year and also for the budget year. And I think those are the main points. The report is in excess of 100 pages. It includes the general fund, the child nutrition, deferred maintenance. It includes all of the funds of the district, and it also includes all the supplementary forms that are required by the county. So the next step is the county is going to receive this report if the board approves it tonight, and then the county conducts their thorough review, and along with the auditors and the county will get an audit report forwarded to the board in January. And the county will also issue a letter, as they did for the budget adoption, once they've had their review. So I don't know if there's any questions. That's a lot.
I don't have any questions. I mean, I'm intrigued when these come out, because what I'd like to pay attention to is that sort of the year over year, because you have your best estimates of the actuals from last year audited, and then you have the plans for this year, the budget for this year. So that the rightmost column is really interesting to magnitude spot. So a couple of things. I mean, one is we should realize that there was huge textbook adoption last year, right? So you can look, and it's planned textbook adoption. So last year it was like $630,000. This year we're planning $968. So that's going to be a big, that's a big expenditure. The other thing that really jumped out at me was that we're not going to be kind of reserve funding this year nearly as much as last year. So the amount to which our spending exceeded our revenues last year is far more than this year, so it's gone down by about 70%. So to put that in simple terms, last year I think we spent, our excess spending was about $1 million, a little over $1 million, like Josie said. This year it's going to be just shy of $300,000, right? Which is a good thing, but it also means times are tough, right? Times are tough, and we have to do that. Thanks for keeping all this together. It's really important, Josie. We're lucky to have you doing all of this. The last thing that kind of jumped out at me is, we don't get a lot from the feds, but what we're getting is decreasing. So you can see that our Title II dollars are gone, 0. So that's not a good thing. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but our federal funding has gone down by 7%, basically, for this year, right? And that's opposite of what Martha Stewart says. That is not a good thing. But it all looks good. I think we're gonna persevere, right? And hope for. The pension thing is still just, quite frankly, scaring me, and I think the Sacramento's gonna have to come to terms with it, because eventually even the better off districts are gonna be pinched. I think when that comes to a head, maybe somebody in Sacramento will figure out a solution. But thanks, Josie, for putting this together.
Well, thank you, and I also want to thank the board for making those tough decisions. When we adopted the budget, we did cut positions, and the board did adopt a contingency plan. And as we move forward to first interim, we'll still be kind of holding tight and looking at further budget reductions to close that deficit.
Okay. Any other questions? No, we have a motion to approve the unaudited actuals.
Motion to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, number 11, board bylaws, board policies, and administrative regulations.
Okay, I have the first reading of the Zero series, and there are 2 board policies. The first one was non-discrimination in district programs and activities, and we ask you to adopt the CSBA policy with revisions. The only revision being that we put the title, or the title of the person to receive the complaints. And so that would be Maria Langavidia, but we put the position, should she change, that it would go to that position. The other policy, and then just to talk about what changed in that policy, is that it adds immigration status to that. And you're going to see that more and more in all of our board policies, is that immigration status, updating it so that it reflects immigration status, that we will not discriminate based on that, or compile data based on immigration status as well. And then the second one is around charter school oversight, and while we don't have charter schools, we need policies for if we ever were to take one on. And there's one little piece where typically in all of our policies, we take out high schools because we don't have high schools, but we could, in theory, have a K-12 district, or a K-12 charter school. Do you have any questions? We will bring it back to you in second reading next time for consent, please.
Okay. 11B, the May Manual Maintenance 3000 Series, first reading, Josie.
So there were several policies that were brought forward by CSBA for the 3000 series. ARBP 3514, environmental safety, and really it was brought forward because of the new law with regard to when lead is found in the drinking water system. And the board is aware that we had addressed that 2 years ago and did all of our testing. I do want to bring up for 3514 that there was a question about, it's on page 3, number 11, and it has to do with air quality and when people bring things to school that might affect others. And so I just wanted to bring it up to let people know there was a question about that with regards to pets and kids bringing stuffed animals. And so it is in our board policy, and so there could be a question sometimes as to whether it's always followed, or so I'm bringing it up really for that discussion and see if the board wants to make any changes or comments on that policy. This would be our opportunity.
So if I could speak to this, because it was my question. I know you're all shocked. So specifically, it talks about staff and students refraining from bringing furred or feathered animals and stuffed toys. And my question was, I know that there, at least in the past, have been times where, especially the younger grades, they'll have a classroom pet, or children may bring like a stuffed toy, like when they have pajama day, right? Or it's actually, a lot of times, they use in early reading skills, read to a stuffed animal. So sometimes they're in the classroom. So I always have, it's kind of a bee in my bonnet when we have these policies that we don't really follow. So the suggestion, one of the suggestions, talking with Josie, was changing it from staff and students, instead of shall, changing it to may, which would soften it and give the option. Or we make that decision, you can't have classroom pets and stuffed animals. That's not my favorite. Or if anyone else has other suggestions.
Well, that would include them hatching chicks and stuff like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Right, which some of those are really wonderful,
Yeah.
sort of circle of life. And like I said, the stuffed animals, the reading to the stuffed animals.
So that's not really a pet. The hatching of the chicks, I consider that science. And
But
not,
it's
and
bringing
not-
a feathered,
But it
they're
says
bringing a feathered creature into the
refrain
room.
from bringing furred or feathered animals.
Yeah, so, but
So
it's
that's
like,
our
so-
policy, so should we?
Yeah.
This is talking
so-
about students, right?
No,
Well,
students
no.
and
Oh,
staff.
and
staff.
staff.
Yes.
So if you put may, then if they had someone who had an allergy, then they could maybe have that policy or not do that year in that classroom.
Yeah, can we
instead
put
of-
something in there that?
So they have an
that's,
option?
Of being sensitive to
Yeah.
student allergies, that's a little caveat there.
Well, and also needs, so you bring up a good point that you might have for reading, read to a stuffed animal. But I'm also thinking about students with IEPs or with 504 plans that have accommodations that need, I'm thinking sort of the Linus with his blanket, right?
Right.
Like, you have to feel comfortable with your thing, whatever it is,
Yeah.
to be competent to learn.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I guess it would be, I want to be very, very sensitive to students and staff if they have allergies, but also to the mental needs of our students
Right,
as well.
social emotional,
Yeah.
that's the big thing now, right?
Have we had any
Problems?
problems with pets or animals in the classroom?
I haven't heard of any.
I like the look out there, yes, we have, haven't we? Oh, yeah. I think we end up having pets occasionally on campus that,
Well, even if, yeah, I mean, even sometimes, at least in the past, sometimes the police would come and do a demonstration with the police dog, you know, and it's outside, but still, it's a furred animal, so. So should we change it to May? And then, is there something in there about allergies to pet dander, or, I don't remember reading anything about
It's
that.
feathered animals, stuffed toys that may collect dust mites, scented candles, incense, furred or feathered animals.
Right. But it says shall refrain.
Yeah, so we could put may, and then if, like
If
Andrea
someone-
suggested, if we wanted to add some additional language about being sensitive, we could try to craft something and bring it back to you.
But you wouldn't want to stop them from having the chicks in the spring?
No.
No. Or I wouldn't want to stop them.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, Kathy, like our healthy snacks and stuff, and then somebody has a birthday and brings all the
Right.
cupcakes. But there hasn't been a problem. But then on the flip side, I could see people having allergies, like
Right.
even where I work, you can't wear perfume,
Right.
around anybody. But we haven't had problems yet, so maybe the May.
And then with the additional language about.
Additional allergies or medical.
So I don't really see the may as helping too much, because this is already pretty soft. It says shall be asked to refrain. It doesn't say
Shall
requiring
refrain.
anybody to do this. It's just asking them to refrain, and if they don't, there's no repercussion. What I do think is the more important part is putting the condition here. So shall refrain if, there are other people that will be affected by these things.
But I don't think we are asking them to refrain. I
Well,
mean, I think our policy says
But
that,
the thing is,
but-
we should ask them to refrain if it's going to cause allergies in somebody. That's the point, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So the more important part is the condition
Right,
under
Yeah.
which you would ask.
asking them.
And that's not there right now. It
Right.
just sort of says shall be asked. That's what makes it sound like it's a no
Right.
zero tolerance policy when it's not really. It's just asking, and it's not really requiring. If it was truly zero tolerance, this thing would say staff and students shall refrain, not be asked to refrain from.
Right.
Right? So I mean, what I would do, I have no problem switching that to may, but the more important problem is that condition afterwards, that this thing is only going to be activated if there's a problem,
Right.
right?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so then it
Because-
would read, staff and students, we can still say may, be asked to refrain if there is a sensitivity. Well, we can kind of work on some of the
Yeah,
language.
to any of the following.
Sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then we can bring this back again for a first
Sure.
reading?
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah, that was a good point.
good catch.
Thank you. So then the other one is BP 3514, hazardous substances. And really this was updated because they moved these toxic art supplies from an old policy into this policy. And again, we do have a little bit of discussion on that, and I did leave a list, one copy of the list of what toxic school supplies are. I guess the question here is, and I should tell you the page number, it's on page 2 at the bottom, And what it talks about is for grade levels. So there's a list of toxic art supplies for grades kindergarten through 5th grade that are not allowed at all. And it's up there with Kathy. And then for the upper grades, they're allowed to use those art supplies if they're properly labeled. And so the thinking with the old board policy was that the upper grade students would be able to read, interpret, and make those decisions. And I guess some of the questions that have arisen is, there could be upper grade students missed in special day class. Maybe some students might not be able to read and interpret. And so we wanted to kind of bring this also up as a discussion so that you could be aware of what the policy says and see if maybe we should make some changes. And we did discuss this in cabinet, and we thought maybe as cabinet we should spend more time on it depending on how the discussion goes tonight. And maybe we should go back to the principals and talk to the teachers who actually teach those art classes and get feedback from them. So we're sharing the list with you tonight and sharing the board policy, see what questions you have, and see if you want to give us direction to maybe gather more research before moving forward. I don't know if there's anything else to add or.
So, if I could just fill in, because again, this is me. So when I read this, having experienced a K-8 school, I had a lot of red flags. First of all, I kept thinking my kids in 7th and 8th grade would not have read anything, they would have used it, right? They're not gonna stop and say, oh, there's toxic supply, Again, I was asking about, there are times that we would have buddy kids come in and they're not able to read. And are there aids knowing this policy and reading? Possibly not. At the school I was at, we had parents teaching art. Now, you could have a parent who's teaching a kindergarten class and an 8th grade class. And would that parent, I don't know, maybe it is well laid out in the art room, but does that parent know which items can be used with the kindergartners versus which items could be used with the 8th graders? So, but then at having an art degree, I know there are some art products which seem fairly innocuous, but they would have a label that says toxic on it. Maybe you were supposed to spray it outside. It's an aerosol. You have to have a lot of ventilation. So, but this just seemed very loose to me to have something labeled a toxic item and then putting the responsibility on the students that they're going to read the labels. So that was my...
That's what stuck out with me too when I read that, is like, okay, even my best child probably wouldn't read the labels. And on the flip side, isn't it kind of up to us, the adults, to make sure that they're out of harm's way if there's anything?
That's
Super glue.
That's what I'm thinking, is that it's kind of we're expecting the instructors in these classes to not just say, oh, there's the stuff, go at it. We're expecting them to say, okay, this is this type of glue or this type of paint. You have to be very careful with this, and just like if you went into a metal shop or a wood shop, it's, you don't just let somebody get on the bandsaw, without teaching them proper safety protocol. So I guess just kind of banning anything that doesn't have a label on it.
So here's my other question too, to Josie, when I kept, and I apologize because I kept saying, and here's another thing, I'm feeling a little concerned in this position of making a decision, just saying, we're not gonna have it, we're just gonna have the non-toxics, when I don't know what the art teachers are doing.
Sure.
So that was one of my questions, is could we sort of go back and kind of ask the art teachers, I don't know, give them this or whatever, and just kind of find out what items are they using with the 7th and 8th graders, which could fall under this toxic label, and have that discussion before we just sort of across the board make a decision. I feel, personally, I feel very uninformed about what they're doing. And I'd hate to make a decision that's going to just ruin somebody's big art project, so I don't know.
I mean, and the teachers might say, listen, we don't have the proper equipment like latex gloves or whatever you
Right.
need to keep the kids safe, so we don't use that, right? Or we
Right.
shouldn't use that,
Right,
right? But doing just a wholesale ban on things
yeah.
seems a little
It's a
sort
little
of
heavy-handed.
Yeah, a little heavy-handed.
What we thought we would do is work with the principals to bring this back to the 6th through 8th grade art teachers. There's Elmer's glue is on
Yeah.
that list.
Right.
So
But I have a feeling it's Elmer's glue that has extra stuff in it. It's not
Okay.
like the glue
Super.
stick. It's like Elmer's.
So
Crazy.
we just want to propose, is there anything on this list you can't live without? And if that's the case, then saying that that's not the case, but I think it'll increase the awareness of both the principals and the teachers, and then we will be able to come back and give you a more informed.
I think that I would like to get more than just them checking off things that they couldn't live without.
Okay.
I think I would like to get more about what do they think about this proposed policy.
Okay.
And, you know, and what do they think in general about safety? I mean, I'm not the educator here, they are, so I wanna hear what they have to think
Right.
about working with these materials and with the kids.
Well, in many cases, we're not even talking about educators. We're talking about parents
Parents.
making these decisions. And so if we don't have principals, kind of monitoring that, we are, we're responsible to keep the students safe. And the parents really aren't responsible for keeping the students safe. They're in there doing us a favor by volunteering.
Right.
But, we have a lot of responsibility in not having chemicals that are gonna hurt our kids. It's Pacifica.
Bring Elmer's glue in.
Thank you. I think we have good direction like that. And so we will bring this back again for a first reading once we've had time to talk to the principals and the art teachers. Okay, and then the last one is ARBP 3516, Emergency Preparedness Plan. And it really is expanding the policy involving of staff and community groups, and it adds more training as part of the responsibilities to emergency preparedness. I did receive another good question on this item, and Will, it's on page 2, number 2.
It's the AR?
It's the AR, yes, AR 3516, page 2, number 2. When it talks about training of staff, instruction for district staff and students regarding emergency plans, including training of staff in first aid and cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It was pointed out that we also have EpiPen training, and so that's not included in the CSBA recommendation, and that's being brought forward as a possible revision. It could be revised to include training of staff when authorized to administer any medication to students, such as emergency anti-seizure, auto-injectable epinephrine, insulin, or glucagon. So that would be a recommended change after discussion of a question about EpiPen, is to include the whole sentence that I just said.
What page was it on again? You said
Page
two,
two,
number
number
two.
2.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
It doesn't include EpiPen training
Oh.
It just
in the
says
CSBA.
first aid and cardiopulmonary.
Yeah, so we would add the full items that I listed that we actually are already doing in our district. We could make that change, and then we could bring it back for first or second reading. We could bring the 3000 series back again, all together if you'd like. Yeah,
That was the last one.
that was the last one, thank you.
Okay,
That was a
thank
good
you.
question.
Okay, 11C, May 2018 Manual Maintenance 6000 Series. Will?
Yes, so there's only one here, and it pertains to the toxic art supplies. And what I'm recommending, or will be recommending for this, is the deletion of this board policy, since it's been incorporated in the 3000 board policy.
Okay. So future agenda items?
Future agenda items. Next up, next time we have, an important one is the public hearing for the assurance of public pupil textbooks and instructional materials. We'll report out on the Constitution Day activities, which was just this Monday, if you all remember. And then final certificated assignments. And what is not on this list is that that week of October 10th is the week of the school of the administrator, so we'll do a resolution if you'd like. Any other requests? We'll keep moving through our board policies.
Is that for October?
October 10th.
I don't know how the other board members feel, but maybe having some kind of resolution towards Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Okay.
I know we've, gone around with like having that day off, and the teachers still do, come to work on that day, and the kids still have it off. So kids could still be thinking they're celebrating Columbus Day and maybe not having the option of Indigenous Peoples' Day. So I didn't know how anybody felt about that, but maybe having a resolution. Just recognizing that Pacifica has Indigenous people here. We're on Indigenous land of the Ohlone. And I think it would just be nice to honor and recognize that.
I would support that.
Anything else?
Okay. Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:05. 8:04. Now it's 8:05. We didn't rename it last year, but does that need to be redone every year? Well, I was wondering, because when this came up,